open the door for Zadara and let them chat with us. Greg Newman is Vice President of Marketing at Zadara, and Howard Young is Senior Solutions Architect for Zadara. You can read the fundamentals of each one, 25 years of experience in tech and startups and multinationals for Greg, and a diverse background with more than 25 years in software and systems engineering for Howard Young. I welcome you both here today, and you have a brief deck. I'm looking forward to hearing it right now.
Very good.
Who's going to present?
This is Greg Newman. Hopefully you can hear me. And
I hear you just fine, Greg. All right.
And this is Howard. Hopefully you can hear me too.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, I'll hand it over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. This is a lot of fun for us because this topic is near and dear to our hearts. That's why when we saw you were putting this on, we thought we'd love to get involved. So we're glad to be here. Talk a little bit about some practical, what we hope will be some real practical points of information for the audience with regard to the near future of storage. It's a lot of fun to talk about AI. It's a lot of fun to talk about the concepts we were just hearing about, and we're getting there, that's for sure. But what are some of those next steps? How do you future-proof your enterprise storage is the topic for today for us. And I don't know that we want to dwell too much on the evolving storage needs because we've just been through a terrific educational presentation and we've seen some of these things. But just to give you a little bit of background, at Zadara, we took a look at the market and we decided that given the evolution and the time that we're in and what's happening out there with regard to the demands that are being put on storage, we felt that a fresh approach was really called for. And so we sat back with a bunch of us that have been doing storage a long time. And we said, you know what, I think there's another way to approach this problem that maybe relieves people who are in the business of managing storage, relieves them of some of that burden, some of that risk, if you will, of storage. And of course, we know what the risk looks like. Risk comes in the form of financial risk. There's technology risk. Gee, did I buy the right stuff? Do I have the right stuff? And then there's operational risk. After all, if you're managing your storage on an ongoing basis, there's just a risk that just stays with you. We saw very early on, and we've been around since 2011, that the cloud was going to be the future. So we took what you might call a cloud mentality, and we applied it to our business model and everything we do. And let's take a look, if you will, at what it is, in fact, we do here and why we do it, so that you get a sense for maybe in the case of your business, what you're doing, there are choices out there that you might consider. We are no compromise storage for cloud users who are seeking enterprise. Now, this is important. Enterprise storage has not been available previously in a cloud model. We do make enterprise class features available, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those. In fact, Howard, why don't you share with us a little bit? You see what's on the screen here. Share with us a little bit about what goes on in the Zadara storage cloud.
Yeah, so what we put together is a what we call a Zadara cloud, and we basically will stand it up in data centers next to public cloud providers and offer these type of services that are not typically available in the public cloud, at least several years ago, but they are somewhat limited in what they offer. So we do have advanced file services and all the enterprise type of facilities that you would expect on an on-premise type of storage system. The one thing is that we are a software-defined storage company, and we deploy with our own hardware and have our own software stack. But being a software-defined storage, it gives a lot of flexibility. And part of it is our networking, which is also a software-defined networking, and allows us to do a lot of capabilities as connecting public and private clouds. So we can pretty much set up hybrid clouds, multi-clouds, and have it all on a data-centric model so that the data doesn't have to go or span across multiple environments. So we can stand up our we can stand up our equipment in anywhere. So we work with any data type, any protocol, any location. So we have a heterogeneous type of solution that supports block, file, object, and all the major protocols. And again, on-premise, public, and even private clouds.
We get a lot of questions, don't we, Howard, about the service aspect. You know, it's one thing to talk about data types and protocols and to talk about what you see on the screen here with, well, I don't know, whether it's Fiber Channel or iSCSI or iSER. People know these terms. Certainly all of us that have been in the storage management business know these terms. And to talk about, like you said earlier, about other advanced data management features that we offer. But what we get from people a lot, I find, is that this really is a service. And you'll notice we put a plug with somebody plugging something in on this screen for a reason. We really believe that the future of storage should be and should look like the future of other industries that we've all seen mature over the years. Your electricity is something that's very complicated, and it's a serious business. But let's face it, when you walk into the room, you don't want to think about that. You just want to plug something in or turn on the light switch. And we believe that with the proper technology and the proper management, storage can be the same thing. And it should be. For those of us that have other business requirements and other things we want to do, we'd like to think that storage can be just that easy to use and no longer be something that we have to worry about or be an impediment. Howard, I put up on the screen. Slide, go for it.
Yeah, and an important note is that we do it all as a service. So the bottom line is that as a user, you don't really care where the storage comes from. It's there. It's exactly what you need, depending on your application. So going back to our architecture, it's all off-the-shelf hardware. We use enterprise servers, x86 servers, Intel, Supermicro, and other qualified hardware platforms. And what we do is in our architecture, we deploy it as a RAIN architecture. So it's a redundant array of independent nodes. And at the data layer, we use RAID. The other thing that we do is that the deployment is such that it's rated across storage nodes. So, for example, if a drive fails, you still have access to the other drive. If a storage node fails, you still have access to the drive on the other storage node. And this can grow out to hundreds of storage nodes. For example, in AWS, we have about 100 servers serving up petabytes of data of NFS and CIFS. We have a highly available network. It's redundant, and we can connect pretty much any public cloud provider into our system. So, for example, in AWS, we would hook up with Direct Connects and Google Direct Peering, Azure Express Routes, and then we also can do a multi-cloud with a colo. So if a customer has servers that are in a data center, it's simply just a cross-connect through like a 10 gig cross-connect or even 40 gig. The other thing is what we do is we provide this all on dedicated hardware, so that each customer will get their own drives. They'll get their own cores, so it's not a commingling of data. You get the same performance from day one, so you won't have a noisy neighbor type of cloud environment issue. We do provide a tiering level. Yeah, and we do provide a large caching option. It allows you to do a hybrid drive of SSD and SATA. We could use SATA for archive and also SSD, and for all flash type of architectures. Everything's thinly provisioned, and these are the typical things and features you expect in an enterprise system. A couple other things that are available in the cloud is cluster support. So, for example, if you want to run SQL Server in AWS, you could do that with our architecture. We provide MPIO, and you can have a complete failover HA type of clustered database.
But, you know, we were talking a little bit about the isolation. This is a good slide to show that, isn't it?
Yeah, so the isolation, this actually shows you how we build out our arrays. So when we have an account, it's a multi-tenant account. A customer would build out a Zadara account. They get a private VLAN, and then they start building out their arrays or object storage that's completely isolated from other customers. For example, in the green where it says the 200 series, they could build up a four drive virtual array, and that would basically be deployed across multiple storage nodes for the redundancy and also for a RAIN architecture. And then they would also get independent cores on that are used for controllers. The other part is that if they have a new customer come in, or if we have a same customer who spins up another array, the deployment is on separate drives. So then basically you can build out more and more arrays as needed, and you get the dedicated performance across each array that's consistent from time zero.
Nice. I know we're galloping through a lot of interesting technical stuff here. I'm guessing from the list of attendees and the content we're talking about today that everybody's pretty familiar with the concepts we're talking about. And yet, if you have questions, I hope you'll pose them at the end. We're happy to talk about them. And if we don't get to all of them, we're happy to respond. Something important that everybody asks us about right off the bat is, okay, this is great, I'm going up to the cloud, but I'm really very nervous. I really want to maintain control over my data. Of course, we understand that. We have an extensive software interface that allows you to control your entire enterprise storage system through one web-based management portal. I know, Howard, you're in this thing quite a bit. I was just actually in it with one of our ops guys this morning. We're bringing up a new customer. And it was fun to see and listen to them get up and running very quickly because the interface was so familiar to him. This is a little bit of anecdotal feedback. I thought it was interesting, so I'll share it. He said, this is terrific. I understand immediately this interface because it looks a lot like the interfaces that I've worked with before. I was glad to hear that. That's part of our goal.
Yeah, it's a very standardized interface. It's very intuitive to use. And anything you can do through the UI, you can also do through a command line. We do have some power users that they'll spin up arrays, and part of our model is an operational type of expense. So you can spin up arrays, spin them back down. We'll have customers that they'll spin up arrays every day just for workloads, and when they're done, they spin them back down. It's very rapid type of deployment in this case.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's something unique to our model, I believe. I don't know that anybody else does this. We really are a true consumption-based model. You pay only for what you use. And we have customers who will hibernate. We have some education customers, and we have some government, quite a few government customers. And they will bring things up for projects. They will bring things up for the term, the school term, and then they will hibernate, either for periods as short as a weekend, for instance, and save on the charges there. It's very easy to do in our system, and we realized very early on this was a fundamental value to people, and that is, I think, unique, at least as far as I can tell. I'm glad you mentioned that. We are worldwide. We have 171 storage clouds around the world right now. That's growing. And the reason this is important is that, of course, as with most of our customers, I bet you're the same way. You're operating in multiple locations. You're probably operating different data centers in different places for various reasons. We can match up well with you, whatever your data strategy is. We're prepared. Howard mentioned earlier that we have public cloud partnerships and associations, and we have partners, and you can see this on our website. We have partners, data center partners around the world as well. So in terms of whatever strategy you might have for your data management, chances are we got you covered. We are there already or can be there shortly. I wanted to talk a little bit about some customers. Sometimes it's best to talk about what we do in the form of case studies and stories. Here's just a few customers here on this screen, and you can see names from different industries and different walks of life, and I thought this might be a good place for us to tell a few stories and talk about what we're doing. In fact, I mentioned hibernation just a moment ago, and Harvard University does that, right, Howard? We've worked with them, and they seem to like that feature.
Yeah, so they have an online processing where they take video feeds and they process them, but they don't need to have their data available all the time. So what they do is they'll do the processing during the day, and when they're done, they basically shut down the controllers. So this we have part of our operational expense plan is that there's you pay for the size of the controller and then the amount of data. And so when there's no data that you need to access, you just shut down the controllers, hibernate it, is what we call it. The cost of the overall storage drops dramatically. Another use case is pretty interesting is Gilt. Gilt is basically a online retailer, and during this time, so from October into December during the Christmas season, what happens is they use a data-centric model on using Zadara, and then they connect their servers in Equinix and also to our storage in Equinix, and also they connect their compute in AWS. And so as their edge needs grow, they basically spin up more and more EC2 instances, and they have a common storage platform that they can store the data on and process all the orders. And then as January comes along, they start spinning down the EC2 instances, and that gives them the flexibility of basically scale up, scale down type of architecture.
Nice. And I was just on a phone call earlier today, and FTI Consulting came up. I know their logo's on the page here, so I see it. And they were remarking, what they were remarking on was something that I forget about from time to time. I need to be reminded, and it's so convenient. We have Active Directory built right into our system, so anybody who's using Active Directory can and wants to bring Zadara on can take advantage of that integration and adding users as simple as connecting Active Directory. Another example of how we've tried to think this through in terms of integrating with what our customers are doing rather than having them come to us, if you will, and have to change their methods or change their modes where it's not necessary. Well,
right, and because we do support Active Directory, it's a Windows-based file share. This is something that's not accessible or not available in most of the public providers unless you build out your own Windows server. So this is something that is very easy to connect with Active Directory and easy to share their data with a net use type of mount point or drive or a pathway.
Yep. So we've been through in a pretty short period of time a lot. I'm sure it's a lot to digest. I'm happy to wrap it up here by giving a bit of a summary. As we saw from an earlier slide, we are all about any data type, any protocol, and any location. It really is that simple. And we do believe that the future of storage looks like everything we've been talking about today in this session with respect to the complexity, the deluge of the data. That's very, very real. We see it happening with our customers, petabytes of data. And so the question we have in our minds is, why would you want to be in the business of managing and storing all that data when you can have somebody do it for you? And that is exactly why Zadara exists. So thanks for giving us an opportunity to share a little bit about a different approach to data management. We appreciate it, and we'd be happy to take questions.
All right, wonderful. I'll tell you what, I learned a lot. In fact, my publisher, Pearson, is one of your customers. I guess I've been a user of Zadara without knowing it. We did get a question from the audience. Somebody said, and I know where they're coming from with this question. They said, does Zadara have any customers that are startups that come to you as their first form of storage, skipping the ownership of their server and storage hardware altogether and just simply purchasing everything from you?
We actually do. Yeah. So we have two models. One is we get quite a few startups They usually a startup, they're either angel funded, they're very limited funds. So they're doing their processing in AWS, for example, and they'll work with Zadara because this is what they need. They'll need a Windows share or a very fast drive to work out their algorithms or their processes. And we work with them, we give them a free trial, and then what we have is, because they're a startup, we also have a proof of concept program that we can reduce the cost to them, because that's where we're from. We're all, our background is startups from the last 25 years. We know how tight funds are, and this is what we also provide. We do the same thing for on-premise, so if a customer doesn't want to buy or doesn't want to spend a large amount of capital to buy storage, we have an OpEx model on-premise, so that we would deploy our hardware, and then you just pay for what you use at that point. So it saves quite a bit on limited funds with startups.
Do you offer, another question came in, do you offer explicit services on a pay-per-drink basis, such as security or big data analytics or any kind of AI processing or IoT? Anything that is like a vertical that you could fit directly into with the service offerings you've got? Are you more a generic infrastructure solution provider, or do you actually offer applications on top of that?
So we're generic in a sense of what we offer as a storage solution. We do have built into our solution, for example, if we can offer applications, antivirus applications. We also offer Docker right on the array. So it's so if you're doing any type of IoT processing or any type of microservices, you can run it on the array instead of in like a Google or AWS. So now you're going to get very fast local storage instead of through a network. And then we're growing, we also offer like disaster recovery type of plans and things like that.
Okay. This was the question I think that everybody was getting to, because this question came into my mind when you were talking as well. Is Zadara kind of a cloud in front of the cloud or a cloud behind the cloud, if I understand it correctly, providing convenience and services and maybe something in conjunction with the brand name cloud service providers? You had mentioned something about AWS and some customers that were AWS customers were actually doing some of their processing over on Zadara.
Yeah, so we pretty much would be a cloud behind the cloud. Our services are isolated and connected through networking, so direct connects for AWS, for example. So it's in a sense, it's a true SAN type environment or a NAS infrastructure. The advantage here is that we can, with a single storage solution, we have customers that are not forced into AWS or Google. They can move workloads between the both at the same time, or access them at the same time, and basically have a data-centric model that you can access the data anywhere.
Okay, there is concern, as you're probably well aware through the advent of things like GDPR, about privacy of data in clouds and so forth, and it's really creating kind of a nightmare scenario over in Europe. Are you encountering any problems with customers having to withdraw the data they have stored in Zadara clouds for reasons of compliance or information governance? I'm asking for a friend.
So not in a sense, because we're pretty much isolated within a data center. We do run into issues where, for example, data sovereignty, where you can't export data. So if you wanted to set up a disaster recovery from Canada into the U.S., that would not be possible because of Canadian laws. And there's some in the EU too, so it's kind of difficult to set up disaster recovery between Germany and France, for example, without the right legal agreements.
Okay. Do you support tape?
No, we don't support tape.
Okay. You don't have customers that are clamoring for it right now. Do you offer consulting to aid in helping companies to bridge their on-premise data centers and the Zadara cloud? I think that's a good question, too.
Yeah. So we. Go ahead, Greg.
I was going to chime in real quick with. I can't help it. I'm the marketing guy, right? We have a service, what we call our cloud hydration service. So we have a fully formed service around exactly this. We know migrating to the cloud involves a number of steps, and we've built a service to proactively address it. We find that it's a big help to our customers. A lot of the folks we talk to have a general idea of what's involved, certainly, but we've been through so many of these now, we know exactly what to do.
Okay. Somebody likes you so. 1 second. Somebody liked that answer so much they said, "Is there an evaluation coupon available for Zadara?"
Yeah. Just go to our website. There's just click on the sign up here button. But we also have engineering services. So I mentioned that we do have Docker. We do run we do build custom applications for customers that need that type of capability. So, for example, we have a customer that has 2 petabytes of on-premise cache, and what they want to do is they want to take the data, have it compressed, and then shipped into Glacier at a low cost. So this is we built the application to take all the data, compress it, and archive it into Amazon in Glacier.
Cool. That sounds like a service. Actually, a lot of the issues people are coming up with GDPR have to do with the movement of data from clouds that don't comply with their rules to ones that do, and or the ability of customers to extract their data and pull it down to themselves just to find out how much Google has on them or whatever. Another question that came in is, do you support the Microsoft Federated Service? In other words, can you interface to Azure or to a Microsoft environment and just be an extension onto the existing environment in a federated?
Yeah. So with that, it's similar. It's through express routes. So it's a little bit different where the customer actually has to provide the networking. We provide the networking with virtual circuits, but with Azure, you'd have to do. The customer would have to deploy their own network.
Okay. All right. It sounded like most of your infrastructure is fairly homegrown. I was wondering, have you made use of any of the software-defined storage kit that's out there? I mean, from third-party vendors, whether it's a Wasabi or a Datacore or a OpenStack or anything like that. Are you doing any experimentation or any testing of those types of products?
So we integrate with those products. So with Datacore, for example, the easiest way is they live in top of us, between servers and the storage. So the customer would just say, I need 10 terabytes of flash or SATA.
Right.
And then with Wasabi, for example, it's object. And what we have is we do incremental backups. So we take our snapshots, incremental snapshots to the extreme. We can do that to another Zadara target for asynchronous mirroring, or we can go into object storage like Wasabi. So, and then you recover that to do a restore anywhere from there, even outside of Zadara.
All right. That's all the questions I have for you right now from the audience. I think we're at the end of the day. It's been a long day, but that was a good 10 minutes of question and answer, and frankly, I enjoyed your presentation tremendously. I'd like to hear from people who aren't, 3 letters for a name. It gives me encouragement that maybe there's still a market here for these services, and frankly, I get better results when I'm dealing with an outfit that isn't a big, gigantic corporate giant. Typically I feel like I'm getting my hand held a little better. Thank you very much, Zadara, for attending today, and thank you all for asking great questions of Zadara. And let me close out. I'll close out the presentations now, guys. This has been fun. Thank you very much. It's been an extremely interesting day for me. I hope that the attendees who stayed the course, we had about, I think we started the day with about 250. We grew from that number, and then now as we slide into the sunset of the day, we're beginning to lose audience share a little bit. So I'm going to assume people got what they needed out of the program. If you didn't, make sure that you continue to add some questions to the Q&A tab, and I'll make sure that our speakers today get around to asking them. Somebody did ask me a question. I think they were being a smart aleck. They said, what about 5D data storage? I had to actually go out on the web and look that up. It's basically writing your data on glass that can be illuminated from different perspectives. Sounds an awful lot like holographic storage. I have no idea if that's ready for prime time. They've been promising us holographic storage since the Kennedy administration. So I'm going to take a pass on that particular question. But I do thank everybody for participating today. Here's all my contact woo. Great presentations from our sponsors today, and I hope everybody got something out of it. Thank you very much. Tracy, back over to you. Take us out.
Great. Thank you, John. You did a lot of sessions today. You did 6 sessions, so we really appreciate that. And with Greg and Howard on the call, I'd like to also thank you. I am sure the audience learned a lot. We got some comments from the audience already appreciating the event, so we're really happy about that. So I'd like to thank our sponsors for their outstanding presentations too. And our sponsors were Cohesity, Fujifilm, DataCore, and Zadara. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the audience for attending today's online training webcast. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.